with Caitlin Clark and Raven Johnson. Now, I told y'all earlier today, the media in Indiana kind of stirred away from asking Caitlin Clark questions about Raven Johnson. I feel as if with the history that they have, they should have been allowed to ask that question. Now, judging off my experience with working in the media and understanding how these press conferences is held, I'm pretty sure they was instructed not to ask Caitlin Clark questions about Raven Johnson and their past beef because it was a beef. Now, with that being said, I've been a person that been on the
Training camp day one brought immediate tension between Indiana Fever players, and footage from the session has sparked serious discussion about the team's chemistry heading into the season. The clip in question shows a brief interaction during a break right before practice got underway. Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hall, and Aaliyah Boston were moving toward the group when things got uncomfortable. Raven Johnson, standing near a player development coach, stepped back and did not shake Sophie Cunningham's hand when the moment came. That was just the beginning.
Because it was a beef. Now, with that being said, I've been a person that been on the fence, on my neck on the line for Raven. And Raven, you did this. You did this. Bruh, guys, watch this. Scott Agnew cost this clip, so shout out to him. I have not read any of these comments yet, but I want you guys, I'm going to blow this all the way up. If Scott Agnew's get me, he get me, man. But this has to be shared. This has to be talked about. So this was a break that they had right before practice started. Watch.
As Clark moved through the line, she extended her hand toward Johnson. Johnson pulled back, dropped her hand, and turned away. Clark had clearly reached out. The gesture was visible and deliberate, and Johnson did not return it. Not a handshake, not a high five.
Now, did anybody catch it? Did anybody catch what I seen? Because I'm about to break this scene down to you, and this breakdown I'm about to give you is about to be so freaking profound, right? Watch this scene. Now, I'm about to break it down for you guys right now.
Nothing. What makes the clip even more telling is Sophie Cunningham's reaction. Cunningham was positioned right in front of Lexi Hall as the group came together, and she caught the entire exchange. Her expression shifted the moment Johnson stepped back. She kept her eyes locked on Johnson, watching closely, with a look that said she had seen exactly what happened and was not pleased about it.
Scene. Now, I'm about to break it down for you guys right now what exactly happened in this 17-second clip. Now, let's fast forward here. So that's Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hall, and Aaliyah Boston walking towards everybody else, right? Now, there goes Sophie. Now, Raven Johnson immediately steps back and did not shake Sophie's hand. So it started with Sophie. She did not shake Sophie.
Cunningham appeared to be the only one in the immediate group who registered the snub in real time. Clark moved toward the back of the group shortly after, visibly caught off guard by the lack of response. The interaction is being taken as a sign of unresolved tension between Johnson and her teammates, particularly Clark, carried over from previous conflict. The timing is notable. This was not a regular season moment under pressure or a heated game situation.
With Sophie. She did not shake Sophie's hand. Here go Raven Johnson here, right? To the left, next to another coach or player development coach. Now watch Caitlin. Oh. Look, now watch Caitlin. Now she shook Lexi Hall. Here go Lexi right here in front of Caitlin. Sophie Cunningham is in front of her, right? Caitlin is behind Lexi. Watch Caitlin stick her hand out. Watch Caitlin is slow. Look at Raven Johnson's hand. Look at her hand.
This was the very first day of training camp. During a low-stakes break, with cameras present, the decision not to greet a teammate in that setting is being read as a statement. The concern being raised is not just about one missed handshake. It is about what that moment signals for the locker room going forward. A team chasing a championship cannot afford friction that shows up before a single drill has been run.
Her hand out. Watch Caitlin is slow. Look at Raven Johnson's hand. Look at her hand. She put her hand down and she ducked her head. Right here. This is the moment. I hope everybody's catching this. This is Raven Johnson right here, already starting problems. Damn, why did she do this? Because this is just not a good look. This means to tell me she ain't passed.
If the tension between Johnson and her teammates is already visible on day one, the question of whether it can be managed through a full season becomes very real. The footage has circulated widely, with many viewers noting that the body language from Johnson throughout the brief clip was deliberate rather than accidental. Whether the situation gets addressed internally remains to be seen, but the moment has already made an impression. Something that has drawn considerable attention from observers is the stark contrast between how the Indiana Fever operated last offseason versus how they are handling things this year. The difference feels like two completely separate franchises.
She ain't past the past, bro. She bringing the past into this Fever locker room, which is very, very bad. This is bad. This is so freaking bad. Look at Raven Johnson, right? Now hold up. There's more. Watch Kaylin extend her hand. Look. Kaylin extends her hand to give her a high five. Look at Raven step back. Y'all see Raven stepping back?
Last year, when a notable free agent came into the picture, the Fever pulled out all the stops. Players were brought into the facility, given full tours, shown the private chef, presented with every perk the organization had to offer. The goal was clear: sell the vision, sell the brand. When mobile lanes came around this year, none of that happened. No tour, no chef, no grand presentation.
Y'all see Raven stepping back? Now, there's more to this footage. There's more to this scene that I want to show y'all. There's more, because watch Sophie Cunningham. Watch Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is right here in front of Lexi Hall. Watch Sophie Cunningham face. Look, watch Sophie Cunningham. Look at how Sophie looks at Raven. Look at Sophie's face. Look at Sophie's face. There's drama in this.
The rookie situation this year tells a similar story. New players arrived and got a basic group welcome post, nothing more. Passat and Timmons were already there, and Raven Johnson showed up notably tiny in person, but the energy around their arrival was minimal compared to prior years. The marketing situation is perhaps the most telling sign of where things stand. Almost everything the Fever have been putting out this year appears to be leftover inventory from last season.
Is that the rookies rock up, and whatever about welcome rookies, they couldn't have even brought them all in individually. It was just welcome rookies. And by the way, this wasn't even the day they came. Passat and Timmons were there already. And by the way, Raven Johnson is tiny. Oh my God. But this here is the one thing that I find. This is the one thing that I find really, really not even concerning, because it doesn't really, the marketing stuff doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what they do on the course.
The every game is a home game shirts, the various promotional materials, it all looks like stock that never moved. The reason for that seems fairly straightforward. The Fever went into last year genuinely believing they had become the defining franchise of the WNBA, the apple of the league, as their own leadership described it. They budgeted and produced accordingly, expecting everything to sell out and the narrative to stick.
Doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what they do on the course. I think we can all be in agreement with that. Like, what matters is what happens on the course. But if you look everywhere here, now you know. He's wearing an every game is a home game t-shirt. Now you know. And if you guys haven't seen everything with the Indiana Fever this year in their marketing,
it did not stick, and now there are warehouses of unsold merchandise to prove it. The financial picture adds another layer. Marketing budgets for this season were almost certainly set during a period when the league was still dealing with potential labor disputes, which likely tightened spending across the board.
The Indiana Fever this year in their marketing, it is stuff that were left over from last year, because I don't think the Indiana Fever thought that last year. I think behind the scenes, the Indiana Fever were like, we're Apple. We are the brand of the WNBA. We're going to be Apple. As Kelly Karskov said, we want to be Apple. They believe that they were the brand of the WNBA. And They have a lot of t-shirts left over. They have a lot of stuff left over. And they
But beyond the budget issue, there is a broader pattern here that feels familiar. The Fever are starting to show some of the same organizational habits that held the Chicago Sky back for years. A certain looseness in decision-making, a lack of urgency in how they evaluate and develop talent. The draft decisions this year raised eyebrows. The rumor circulating around Raven Johnson was that she got picked largely because South Carolina runs pro-level practices, meaning the front office figured she would adapt quickly.
have a lot of stuff left over. And they spent a lot of money last year that I don't think they have this year. Like, I think they were given a massive marketing budget. And look, I do also think the fact that the budgets were probably decided when the league was still potentially facing a lockout doesn't help. But like, you're seeing a lot of things with Indiana this year with the Fever when you're like, okay, they're like Sky-esque. There's a lot of Chicago Sky-esque things about this.
That kind of reasoning, drafting for fit over talent, is not a sign of an organization operating with full confidence in its own evaluation process. The handling of Timmons and Passat was equally puzzling. Technically, players from the developmental pool can compete for a spot on the main roster, but when 12 players have already been told they made the team and Passat has been publicly told she is not in the plans, calling it a competition is generous.
Chicago Sky-esque things about this organization. There's a lot of, well, now that's why the Indiana Fever sucked for a while. Like, again, there's a load of things, like the rumors of Raven Johnson being drafted because she went to South Carolina and South Carolina's practices were like pro practices and they thought, you know what, she'd be ready to practice. Like that, seems like they didn't even really want to draft anybody.
The Fever essentially removed any real stakes from the situation before it even began. What is becoming clearer is that last season was not proof of the Fever ascending to elite organizational status. It was a moment in time built almost entirely around one player. The parallel to the Golden State Warriors is worth sitting with for years. Golden State talked about being the gold standard, the best-run franchise in basketball.
Seems like they didn't really want to draft anybody. The whole not even letting Timmons or Passat fight it out for a spot. And I know they can technically fight out for a spot from the developmental pool into getting a main roster spot. They can technically fight it out. But like, you've already told 12 players that they're on the team. And when it comes to Justine Passat, you've already publicly said she's not making the team. So I'm like, I don't like that from the Fever. And then there's a lot of things.
The realistic path forward for Indiana seems to be leveraging Caitlin Clark's profile to attract players who need to rehabilitate their standing in the league, talented players willing to take below-market deals in exchange for visibility. That is a workable strategy, but it is a far cry from the Apple narrative. The organization is not incompetent. That would be an overstatement.
And then there's a lot of things where you're looking at it and it's like, last season was clearly a blip. Very traumatic. She did a number on us. I've not tweeted about excitement since trauma. Didn't even bring out the standard is gone. And that's the thing where you're looking at Mo Billings. She's brought in, basically, it is 2024 all over again. It was
but a full year of projecting gold standard status has given way to a reality where the Fever rank as somewhere between average and slightly below average from a structural standpoint. When it comes to scouting specifically, they sit among the worst in the league, possibly second worst, with only the Las Vegas Aces potentially behind them in that department. The Aces, of course, compensate for weak scouting by having Aja Wilson, Jackie Young, the best head coach in the league, and a historically favorable whistle. The Fever's margin for error is considerably smaller, and the gap between last year's self-image and this year's reality is...
It's literally like last year. The Indiana Fever. I don't know, maybe they thought because they had the viewership. I mean, as in fairness to the Fever, they did get two of the arguably the biggest name free agent in Dewana Bonner at the time. That was actually had a chance of leaving their team. So I don't, when it all comes down to it, like, I think they thought last year, you know what, we're going to win the title.